welcome to the deep dive. So, we've got this really interesting stack of source material from you today, and it connects two areas you don't normally see discussed together. On one hand, the mechanics of learning English, the nitty gritty, and on the other, these like broader ideas about personal success and self-improvement.
It is a fascinating link, isn't it? I mean, one source title jumps right out: Discipline et apprentissage de l'anglais. Discipline and learning English. That framing itself tells you something. It suggests the path to fluency isn't just about brains, it's about, well, behavior.
Exactly, that's the hook. Because then there's this specific segment title, English Podcast for Learning English, How to Be More Disciplined in Life. So we're not talking study tips here like flashcards or apps. It's way bigger. It's suggesting you need general life discipline first to really succeed at English.
Right. And that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to unpack that connection. Why is a guide on learning English focusing so heavily on being more disciplined in life? What's the underlying argument? What are they saying we actually need to do?
Okay, let's dig in. The fact that this resource even exists, focusing squarely on discipline, that feels significant. It sort of shifts the focus, doesn't it? Maybe the problem isn't how hard English is, but how disciplined the learner is.
Precisely. Think about learning a language. You don't get fluent overnight or even in one intense weekend. It's built up bit by bit, day after day, small actions repeated consistently. So what you need is a system, something that makes sure those small actions actually happen regularly, even when you don't feel like it. That system, well, that's discipline.
But discipline, it's a strong word. For a lot of people, it sounds kind of negative, like punishment or forcing yourself. Why would the sources push for discipline over, say, finding learning methods you're really passionate about, or just relying on motivation?
That's a really good point. Because motivation is great. It gets you started, that January enthusiasm for learning English. But what happens in March when life gets in the way or you hit a part that's just hard? Motivation fades. The sources seem to understand this. Motivation starts the engine, maybe, but discipline is what keeps the car on the road for the long haul.
Okay, so discipline is the engine that keeps running when the initial excitement, the motivation, sort of sputters out.
Exactly that. And if we look closer, based on what these sources imply, this idea of discipline for language learning seems to break down into maybe three key parts. Things like adherence, resilience, and maybe environment control. The sources seem to suggest you need to strengthen all three.
All right, let's take adherence first. That sounds like it speaks directly to that consistency issue we were talking about. How does this discipline in life idea actually translate into, practical study habits for English?
Adherence is really about sticking to it. No negotiations. With language learning, we know certain things work, right? Like spaced repetition for vocab, active recall, getting regular exposure. Discipline means you actually do those things consistently, even when they become a bit boring or feel like a chore. Like setting up and following a spaced repetition schedule, that's a disciplined act. It forces you to review things just when you're about to forget them, even if you feel like you already know them.
Okay, so the disciplined learner isn't waiting to feel inspired. They're following the schedule because the learning process itself requires it. They tackle that tricky grammar point not because it's fun, but because, well, the system says, now's the time for optimal learning.
That's it. It takes the daily decision-making out of it. You're not asking, should I study today? Instead, it's, okay, 7 p.m., time for my vocabulary review. The sources strongly suggest treating study time like an important, unmissable appointment. That way, you avoid that daily battle of willpower, deciding whether or not to start.
Okay, that makes sense for consistency. But what about resilience? Learning a language is full of setbacks, right? You mess up pronunciation, you hit those frustrating points where you feel stuck, you misunderstand people. If I'm feeling down about my progress, wouldn't passion or motivation be more helpful than just cold discipline?
Passion definitely helps fuel the fire, no doubt. But discipline, you could say, provides the structure to keep going when the fire dims a bit. Resilience here means keeping up the effort even when the results aren't immediately obvious or when they feel like they've stopped altogether. You know that classic scenario? You start strong, feel like you're making amazing progress, then bam, 2 months where it feels like nothing's changing.
Yeah, the dreaded plateau. Everyone hits that, I think.
And that's exactly where discipline kicks in, according to this perspective, because you've committed to the system, not just the immediate results. So you see that plateau not as I'm failing or this method is bad, but just as, well, a normal part of the journey. Your adherence, your system keeps you showing up. It ensures you keep putting in the reps until the next breakthrough inevitably happens. Discipline gives you that long-term view needed to push through short-term frustration.
I see. So discipline helps you ignore that negative voice that says, this is too hard, or I'm not getting anywhere, or maybe I should just quit. The system you build just keeps running, kind of independent of those feelings.
Precisely. It's like a built-in regulator. And this brings us back to that broader title, How to Be More Disciplined in Life. It's signaling that this isn't just about study habits in isolation. It's about your whole approach to managing yourself.
Right. It implies that if you struggle to learn English consistently, the root cause might not be English itself. It might be a more general difficulty with sticking to things. Like struggling with a workout routine or managing finances or just keeping commitments generally. That same underlying pattern could be undermining your language study.
Exactly. The symptom is, I can't learn English, but the cause might be, I struggle with consistent, structured effort. And that leads us to the third component, environment control. A truly disciplined approach, the kind these sources seem to advocate for, involves actively setting up your surroundings to make sticking to your goals easier and getting derailed harder.
Okay, so this is the really practical side of discipline, like engineering your success.
Yeah.
What would be some concrete examples of environment control for English learning based on this philosophy?
Well, a classic one is dealing with distractions, especially digital ones. Let's say you commit to studying English every morning at 8 morning for 45 minutes. Environment control means that maybe the night before you've already put your phone on airplane mode or set up app blockers for that time. Your textbook or learning materials are already open on your desk. You've removed the friction points in advance. You're not relying on sheer willpower at 8 a.m. You're relying on the structure you built beforehand.
I like that distinction. Shifts the effort. The hard work of discipline isn't necessarily in the moment of studying, but in the planning and setup before that moment. You make the discipline choice once when designing the system, instead of having that internal fight every single morning.
That's the core idea. Willpower is exhaustible, right? It runs out. But habits, systems, they become almost automatic. They are discipline in action. The sources push you to look at your learning space and time and ask, what trips me up most often? If it's getting sucked into social media, the discipline fix isn't just, I'll try harder not to look. It's maybe I'll use an app blocker, or I'll leave my phone in another room during study time. Proactive steps.
And that connects back so well to the learner, the person listening right now who might be searching for the perfect app or method. What we're saying, based on these sources, is that maybe the most powerful tool isn't external at all. It's this internal framework, this discipline system that ensures whatever tool or method you choose actually gets used consistently.
Yes. And when you put it all together, the big takeaway is that learning English effectively becomes, in a way, a result of personal growth. You're using the concrete goal of language fluency as leverage to build these really valuable, transferable life skills. Consistency, resilience, structuring your environment.
It's like a feedback loop then. The effort needed for English forces you to develop better self-discipline. And as your self-discipline improves, your language learning naturally gets easier and more effective because your system is stronger.
Absolutely. And framing it this way as a challenge of life discipline is actually quite empowering for the learner, I think. It counters that idea that language learning is just for people with some kind of special talent. From this perspective, talent looks a lot like just sustained, focused effort over time, which is basically discipline. It puts the outcome much more in the learner's control.
Okay, but hang on. If discipline is the absolute key, this sort of meta skill, does that mean things like having a good teacher or using quality learning materials don't matter much? Are the sources saying those are irrelevant?
That's a really important clarification. No, I don't think they're saying those things are irrelevant at all. They absolutely matter. But the argument implied here is that they're perhaps secondary to the learner's own consistency. Think of it like a high-performance car. A great teacher is the expert mechanic. The best materials are the premium fuel, essential components. But if the driver, the learner, lacks the discipline to actually stay on the road, to practice consistently, to show up, then the quality of the engine or fuel doesn't get you very far, does it? You need the disciplined driver to make use of those excellent resources.
Got it. So a lack of discipline becomes the bottleneck. Even the world's best learning method won't work if you only use it sporadically. Whereas maybe even a good enough method, applied with rigorous consistency, will yield results. The sources want us to fix that bottleneck first.
Exactly. And this focus on your internal system gives you a better way to figure out why you might be struggling. If you've been trying to learn English for a year and feel stuck, instead of just buying another course, this approach suggests looking at your actual behavior. Pull out your calendar, your study log. Did you really put in the time you planned to? Were you hitting that 80–90% consistency mark, or was it more like 30%?
That's a much more useful diagnostic question than just why is English so hard? It becomes where is my system breaking down?
Okay.
And the answer to that question, the fix, is likely something that will benefit you way beyond just learning English.
That's the power of connecting these two fields. The sources basically offer a strategy. Build the habit to learn the language. Once the habit, the discipline, is solid, the learning becomes almost inevitable. It makes the path to fluency also a path to becoming more effective in general.
Okay, so wrapping this up for you, the listener, we've explored how these sources link English learning success directly to broader life discipline. The key takeaway seems to be that building fluency requires building these transferable skills like consistency and resilience. But where do you start? It sounds like a lot.
Well, we talked about those three core parts: adherence, sticking to your plan; resilience, pushing through difficulty; and environment control, setting yourself up for success. To get the most impact right now, you probably need to figure out which of those is your biggest hurdle currently.
Right. So the final thought we want to leave you with is really a challenge for self-reflection. Think about your own English learning journey right now. Which specific area is it consistently sticking to your schedule? Is it managing distractions in your study space? Or is it bouncing back emotionally when you hit a tough spot? Which one of those, if you really focused on improving it this week, would likely give you the biggest boost in your English progress?
Yeah, don't just think about the next grammar rule or vocabulary list today. Think about strengthening the system that gets you to that list reliably. Focus on the structure first. The sources suggest that if you get the discipline right, the fluency will naturally follow.